Hi, I'm Adele, and I have a very special guest today to do an interview with me. And I've asked my son, my only son, whose name is Lewis. He's going to ask me questions. I don't know what he's going to ask me. I told him not to answer, not to tell me. So let's get started. Here's my son. Here's Lewis.
Well, thanks again for having me be the interviewer. Like I said before, I feel very unqualified, but I'm happy to do it and I'm honored. So I just jotted down a bunch of questions as, I guess, a way to kind of guide us through a conversation. But I know that often your interviews are just conversational, so I guess we can take it from there. But I thought that a good place to start, maybe from the beginning. So my first question is, when did you first become interested in art?
I became interested in art literally, maybe not 1 year old, but maybe 5 or 6 or 7. I mean, we grew up, mother, Adele, was an artist, and we grew up in a whole environment that just, everything was creative. We had a dark room, we had my mother's art all over the walls, which was abstract. So we did ceramics, we did drawing, we would go out and go just explore and do creative things all over and do all kinds of stuff. My mother was a blast and so much fun and just really encouraged creativity. So from the very beginning of my life.
Well, I knew that, but I guess it's good for everybody else to hear that too. So I guess starting from there, can you walk me through your career path?
Well, let's see. Career path. From an art perspective, it's been a long path. And from the very beginning, when I started to go to, join galleries and the whole thing, but I want to kind of jump through that really quickly because I started with galleries and then here I am today. I've pulled out of all the galleries and I'm doing the online courses. And that has been one of the best, most exciting things in my entire life. And that's what I'm focused on because I get so excited, as you do, about things that are creative. You're creative in so many ways, and I'm hoping that as a mother and an artist and kind of off the wall a little bit, that I've, encouraged you to do things that are fun and simple and playful and that kind of thing.
Right. So it sounds like throughout your career, and this is something that I've seen, it's definitely evolved. It hasn't been like, one stage going to the next, where it seems like things have gone in a slow way, and I guess maybe sometimes more quickly, from one thing into the other, but that you've always been creative in following it and in embracing either whether it's new trends or trying to seek out the next thing all the time and staying ahead of it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and basically, you always. My whole motto is: if you're not ahead, you're behind. Mm-hmm. And I do that with even my age. I'm so happy to be in the next couple years, like, oh, I'm almost 60, or I'm almost 65, and now I'm heading towards 70. I'm always ahead. But that's not only with age, but it's also with, with trends. And everything is a risk. Painting is a risk, and making a living as an artist, which I've done for over 30 years, it's a risk. But the thing is, if you just have to keep trying things. Everything that I've tried, it's not all worked. Right. You learn from the failures and you're like, okay, that didn't work. Is there a way to tweak that or do something different to make it work? So that's why you've always got to be 2 or 3 years ahead thinking about that kind of thing. And not only that, it just makes life more fun. Well, I'm going to try this or I'm going to try that. I've never been a follow the leader kind of. I've actually gone in the opposite direction. If everybody's going this way, I'm going to go over here. So, I don't want to follow the mainstream. I want to do something different.
Right. Well, thank you. That was helpful. Okay, so my next question is, what do you enjoy most about being an artist?
I love the freedom. Freedom in so many ways. Freedom in time. Like, I work so long hours, as you know, all the time. The days aren't, I can't ever tell if it's Monday, Tuesday, weekend, or whatever, but I'm always working and creating. And so to me, it's the freedom to do whatever I want. And when I pulled out of the galleries, when you're in galleries, and it was a wonderful experience, But they wanted, you wanted sort of, when they're promoting you as an artist, you want to kind of keep the same theme in your work. And as soon as I pulled out, it's like, oh, I want to do sculpture. Oh, I want to do photography. Oh, I want to do flowers. I want to do realism. So it's really the freedom to do whatever you want. I love the freedom.
Right. I can see that. That's great. So hopefully this is going to be an easy question for you. What is your favorite color?
My favorite color is white and orange.
White and orange.
Well, white's like my favorite color, but I do orange. This is like a very special, this is kind of an orange yellow. This is like my good luck bracelet. And my friend Alan, he knows about it. So I love to, promote him and just talk about him. But my favorite color is orange.
And white, you said.
And white. Let me take a look at the paintings. I love the neutral paintings, so I love white, but I like the neutral and the white with pops of color. So you'll see pretty much orange on every single picture.
Right.
What's your favorite color?
Oh, that's a tough one, but probably some form of blue.
What kind of blue? Dark blue? Light blue?
I don't know. I can't think of a specific one. I just know that I'm always drawn to blue because I think it's airy, light, uplifting, relaxing. So yeah, I don't know. There's always been blue, I guess, and I almost feel strange saying it because I feel like it's a cliche. Like so many people's favorite, color, I'm guessing is probably blue. But I really love it, and I love it balanced with other colors that complement it as well.
Like
yeah,
orange, because orange and blue are the complementary. My children know what complementary colors are.
Yes, and my children know what complementary colors are now too. Okay, so this is one that I was interested to hear, and I'm not sure that I know the answer to this, even having seen you throughout all the years and all the different stages, but what is the biggest challenge as an artist that you faced, and how do you overcome it?
That's a really good question. The biggest challenge was really to learn about business. When I saw, you kind of look at what's happening and what's working and what's not working. And a lot of people don't make a living as an artist. I was lucky to, but I focused on doing that. It's like, I have to do this. So when I pulled out of the galleries are the business person, and they're the ones who promote you and expose you and, have shows for you and promote and market you and all that. But when I pulled out of the galleries, I started just, having to do something else. So that was probably the hardest transition. What am I going to do? It's all I knew was the galleries. But it turned into, and when I pulled out of the galleries, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I just knew I couldn't keep living, making my living that way. And so, and this was about 5 or 6 years ago. And so then it was like, okay, what else can I do? And then I came across, I looked and looked and looked, and I came across and tried something with the show, Round Top Texas, which you know very well, that 2 times a year. And it took a while for that to get started, but because I was one of the only people to go there. And that's another thing, that you can't be afraid to be the first person to do something. I was the only artist there out of all these miles and miles of stores and dealers. People went to Round Top to buy antiques. Right. And so that was a big challenge for me. But as I tweaked it every year, then it came to be something very successful. So now I changed that. Now I'm not doing that anymore. And now I'm doing the online classes.
Right. What do you think your biggest career accomplishment is, and one that you're the most proud of, and why?
I think the best one, or I'm the luckiest to be able to make a living as an artist. To be able to do that. And there were times when, during the crash in 2008, where I wasn't making enough money, and I tried to get a job. I went up and down every store, applying for everything. I never got one. And so I just, basically went back and asked myself, okay, if I worked as hard and committed, which I already did, but it's like recommit. I'm going to do this. I'm going to see what I have to do, and I'm just going to make it happen. I'm very determined to make things happen. Like, what do I need to do? I'll do it.
Right. So the fact that you've been able to have a career as an artist, you think is the biggest accomplishment?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Well, it's a big one. And I know that it's very tough to make that happen. So that is something that I would be proud of too. And I'm proud of you for doing that.
That's so sweet.
So how do you think the field of art will change over the next 30 years? because it seems like we're in a time right now of a lot of change and uncertainty. And so I'm curious to hear if you think that art will become more of a priority, less of a priority, or maybe not even on that scale, but again, kind of wanted to open it up and just ask more broadly, how do you think the field will change over the next, 10, 20, or 30 years?
That's a good question. And I've thought about that a lot because there are a lot of artists who are learning and they're not going into galleries. So they're asking me, how do I do this? Where's it going? And what I've seen in all these years, all my 40 years of doing this, the only way you could get your work seen was in a gallery.
Right.
So that was the only way. Then it started to change many, many years after that, where you could have it in restaurants or you could just get exposure that way. And then the internet blew things out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you know how to market and put your things on Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, all those things, it's just out for the whole public. So it is the best time ever that it has been promoted, that you can have access, whether you just starting learning or you've been an experienced painter. Now, as I look into the future, I think when you look at the art as art history, long time ago, there always used to be these a certain amount of famous painters, and they stood out from everybody else. And that's really not happening anymore. You have so many painters who are very good, and so many artists that you don't have this group of like abstract expressionists or impressionists. It's so different now, and each kind of trend goes into another, and it kind of all blends. And so I think they're going to be more artists, at least exposure, and which is great because I think the more art, the better in the world. But
Right.
I don't think you're going to have these defined art, categories,
Right.
that define a section of art history.
Okay, and this is a similar question, and it's related, but it is a little bit different. And I think you briefly touched on this, but what advice would you give a young artist today?
I'd say one of the most important things to become an artist, to become a good artist, is to give yourself enough time to play and experiment. Mm-hmm. Because you can't once you start judging and once you start analyzing, your art doesn't become as good as it could be. Only through experimentation does your art get better. So, and people get afraid. And I know with my students, in the membership, it's like, don't be afraid, make it fun. Part of what I love to do is I like to play games to learn. And I like to do random colors and play with it. It's just really, really fun to do that.
Right.
So I think that's the best thing, is just to really enjoy what you do, because if you're enjoying what you do and you're playing and experimenting, it's going to show on the canvas. It's joyful and happy.
Well, I think that's great. I'm sure that'll be helpful for a lot of younger artists to hear. So I'm curious about this, and I think I know the answer, but if you had to pick a profession other than an artist, what would you pick and why?
I'd pick a surgeon.
That's not the answer that I thought you were going to give.
I love medicine. I can't explain why. It fascinates me. It's like understanding what's behind, underneath, and surgery, and I watch as many medical shows as I can. It's like, oh, you just do this and this and look, and it's problem solving. And that's
Right.
what art is. It's problem solving. But
Yeah.
it's fascinating, and you're dealing with the human body. So that's what I would do if I had to start all over again or to have a whole nother career. It would be as a surgeon.
I never would have guessed
What
that.
would you have guessed?
Oh, I think something related to real estate and interior design combined.
I do
Something
love
along
real
those
estate and
lines.
interior design too.
Yeah. But that's interesting to hear that that it would be a surgeon. I wouldn't have thought that, but I see why. And so this is one of the questions that I know that you ask everybody in your interviews. So how do you define creativity?
Well, I'll tell you. I think that the best description, and I have to take this from your son,
Oh yeah.
is I asked Lewis's son, Jack. I interviewed him and I asked him, and I can't come up with a better description. He defined it as being clever. And I think that's what I've listened to so many people who say there isn't,
Right.
creativity. There is creativity. Creativity is being clever and problem solving.
Right.
That is what it is in a nutshell. So I love that Jack said that.
Yeah, I do too. That's a great answer, and I feel like it is very representative of his personality. He's very clever.
He is very clever.
Well, great. So, what else can you tell us about either art or your career or anything that relates to whether it's these videos or any other topic in creativity that you feel like is a good message to convey, or anything else you want to share?
I think that what I've learned, and I feel so fortunate because I've reached so many artists from around the world, and I've met so many of them through Zoom and this or the other.
Right.
And it's the excitement and joy. That is the bottom line, is just the excitement and joy, which you have. And it's contagious. You and I get so excited about creativity, about design. Now, I know you're doing the real estate, and I love working with you on that. But it's just really excitement and joy and being playful and enjoying your life. There's nothing more. You have to make it fun.
Right. Well, good. That's a great message. Well, those are all the questions I have. So thank you for the interview. It's been fun.
Well, I have a question for you.
Oh, great. Okay, what is it?
I knew that Lou, you would be you'd have this list. I didn't know what they were, which is great. I hope I gave an okay answer. Who knows? But what was it like to grow up with me being creative and being an artist as a mother? Because a lot of people don't have, from your whole life, you saw me as in the arts.
Right. Well, I think that it would be a kind of a mirror answer of some of the answers that you gave to my questions. And I think about the themes of having fun and being creative. And I think that was something that didn't apply to just art, but in everything that we did when we were growing up with you as a mother. Like, things I can think of specifically were even, I remember that you used to make all these games for us when we were really little. And we used to play those, and you would just invent these games and then make them all the time. And so I don't know that I would put that in the category of art, although I think many people would, or you could certainly consider that. But to me, it was more about having fun and being creative. And so even with challenges, like if it was, a difficult time learning something, I think that you were always, very accepting, and it was always this attitude of yes and where it was building on whatever it was never saying, oh, I don't know if that's a good idea, or you can't do that. It was okay, even if it was a surprise, and then you may steer it in a different direction, or you tried to build upon it. So that's a theme that I think I saw a lot growing up. And then, especially just through the eyes of a boy, because the primary role was as a mother. I mean, that's how I saw you. It wasn't always an artist. And then I think as you had more time and we, were older, you were able to devote more time that you had into art. And so then it really began to evolve, I think, more quickly, because it was always a part of it. I mean, I remember even being a little kid, seeing your studio. So I think that it's one of the things that's really neat is that we learned it through those important lessons through experience. And it may be hard to define, but in the subconscious, for sure, that we saw that was a great way of dealing with problems. And, it was just really good input. So I think it was really fun. I loved it. It was always a great time.
That is so good to hear. And I promise I didn't tell him to say that.
Right.
So I think that's it.
Great.
That's good. You're so sweet. Thank you so much for doing this, especially when you might not be comfortable and, to come in here and see all these cameras. There are a lot of cameras and lights in here. So thank you, sweetheart.
You're welcome.
Love it. Love you.
My pleasure. Love you too.
Okay. Thanks for joining, and see you later.